What is up, humans of the cardboard? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. We've got more animation Chronicle stuff to talk about. We got the starving Venomy dragon the day before yesterday, but I didn't want to make a whole video just about that. But today we got a new Lyrilusc card, and that is really, really hype. I know there are a lot of people excited for Lyrilusc stuff already, and the new support actually seems really good. We got some really good extenders. We have a Rhoda, we've got a trap card that disrupts, and we have an Exceed that can be like potentially 3 bounces all in one turn for disruption, which is absolutely insane. So let's start off with the Lyrilusc card and let's just get into this thing. Okay, we're going to start off with Lyrilusc Bird Strike. This is a normal spell, just a normal spell. You can only activate one card with this card's name per turn. And this card reads, if you control a Lyrilusc monster, simply negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls until the end of the turn. Okay, I mean, this card's really interesting to me, because while I don't think this card is bad, I mean, look at Dark Ruler No More, and I know your opponent can't respond with monster effects to Dark Ruler No More, so obviously that's the big difference here. But it still baits a negate, right? If your opponent has a full board, they have to negate this card or they lose, right? Like, you're just gonna break them with Lyrilusc most likely, with a Zeus most likely. But what I wonder here is really the true application, right? Because, like, when are we actually being able to use this card the way it's intended? Because you have to think, like, going second, you don't really want to have more than like one of this in your deck. You're playing like more of a combo centric strategy, so you don't want to brick on a card like this. But with the new stuff, the spells and traps are searchable. I just wonder if this is really worth. So I think potentially this could be a one of in the build where, like, in the situation, if you need to play through a disruption, you could potentially search this if they let the search go through, because I think that's fine and they want to stop something else. Then you drop this down and this has to bait their negate. And now they don't have a negate and you play through the rest of it, no problem. I don't know. That's just what I'm thinking. I don't really see it more as more than like a one of. Just because you'd just rather play Dark Ruler No More because it can't be responded to. It's just beating those boards anyway, whereas this card can be stopped, but at least it does bait and negate so that you can play through more or the rest of it. So I like it. I don't think it's a bad card. Obviously, it could have been better, whether it was a continuous that can activate once per turn or a quick play. Obviously, a quick play would be insane because then we might be just playing 3 of that and like more of like a mid-range control variant because that card would be so good. I think it's fine, right? Not going to complain, not going to be greedy about it. I think it's a fine card, and I'm just happy it's not complete gumbo. So pretty cool, pretty cool. And next up, we have Starving Venomy Dragon. The artwork looks kind of crazy on it, and it is a pendulum fusion monster. It's pretty cool. So this guy is a level 7 Dark Dragon Fusion Pendulum Effect monster, 2500 attack, 2000 defense with a scale 1. A nice low scale. His pendulum effects are 3-fold. So the first one says, each time a card on the field is sent to the graveyard, place a Venomy counter on this card for each. Second effect, all monsters on the field except Dark Dragon monsters lose 200 attack for each Venomy counter on the field. And the last effect, once per turn, you can reduce the battle damage you take from a battle to 0. Those are pretty good. I know some people may question that, and they're like, okay, yeah, nothing crazy, not a crazy extender. It's a low scale, so it doesn't really mess with most decks as far as establishing scales, right? You just need to find a high scale with it once it reaches this point. But I think these scale effects are pretty damn good, right? This is not once per turn, so you could easily end up just by doing like a little weird combo. Well, you may be playing this in a pendulum deck, but I assume you'll still have, this is cards, not monsters. So you could easily end up with 5-10 counters on this thing, and it includes your opponent's stuff as well. So as this sits in the scale, after you do your plays and your opponent does their plays, most of their stuff, unless they are specifically on a Dark Dragon, so unless they're on like Dragon Link or something else that plays Dark Dragons, their monsters are going to be 0 attack, all of them, always, while this card is in scale. That's pretty good, actually. So I actually kind of like this effect. in scale. It's very threatening, and it takes away a whole area of the game essentially from your opponent, assuming they're not playing Dark Dragon. It says you cannot use the battle phase to do anything you want to do, and I think there's value in that. So very, very cool. And there are obviously weird things that work around it, like Borbo from Zodiacs can still get in there and then make Zeus alive and stuff. But I mean, generally, as far as running over your monsters, beating over your stuff, dealing you damage, that does not work until they remove this. And I like that because it forces them to not only remove him from field initially, but then remove him from scale if he ends up in scale, because they'll just be kind of trapped there. Cool. So then we get to his monster effects. His materials as a fusion monster are 1 dark monster plus a pendulum. That also makes this a super poly target. Do not forget, if either we run into a meta where pendulums are good, a lot of good pendulums are dark, so you can just hit them rawly with this. Or if you're playing a pendulum deck, you just need to hit any dark monster with super poly. So this is pretty good. I like this genericism there. I always love that. And he has 2 effects. The first monster effect is a hard once per turn. It reads, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls. Until the end phase, this card's name becomes that monster's original name, and replace this effect with that monster's original effects. Then that monster loses 500 attack and defense. Its effects are negated, and if it does, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. Whew. Here's what I'll say. This should have been a quick effect, to be honest. If this was a quick effect, this would be so much more clean, because you negate something while stealing its effect. And then you could potentially use its effect that same turn. Depends. Like, obviously, you get really niche with it, but you have really, really cool potential for like high rolling certain things and hitting like crazy, crazy effects off of it, depending on what your opponent is on. And you kind of whiff that here. It's a slow effect, which kind of stinks, but I don't know. If you're just using it as a super poly target that your opponent has to out and then it ends up back in your scale for more value, I think it's decent enough for that. And it does some cool threatening things with this effect here. It's just slow. If it was Disruption, way, way better for sure. And the second effect, if this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. Of course, that's how pretty much all fusion, synchro, exceed pendulum monsters seem to work. You summon them correctly originally, then once they're destroyed on the field, they go to the scale, which is cool. So yeah, all in all, I think this card's okay. I really think if this was a quick effect, it would change this card, because then you could disrupt your opponent by super polying into this. And with how crazy some of these combo decks are, a lot of them can play stuff like that, especially if you're only using this to take like 1 dark from your opponent's field, right? It may not be the most insane disruption ever. But then on top of that, after summoning this, you still have an Imperm-esque effect that then copies their monster. Could actually be like really powerful enough to just stop turns. So unfortunately, it's not how it works, but I still think it's a decent card all in all. I think we'll consider it as a super poly target going forward, which is cool. Always got to keep an eye on those, and I think it's nice to have them, especially if you are a person who, a duelist who tends to lean more so towards the kind of decks that would be playing super poly. I think it'll probably have its day in the sun at some point, just being a nice utility card in that way. But yeah, all things considered, I'd give this card a 6.5 out of 10. Nothing crazy. And I would give this card probably just a 6 out of 10. I think they're fine. I think they're slightly above average. They're not garbage, completely throw them in the trash. But I don't think they're like breaking their respective decks. Then we get to real quick, let's touch on Animation Chronicle. The set actually comes out in like 4 days in the OCG, so we are really right there. We're still missing a couple cards. There's a one-off randomly in here. Could be a Destiny Hero card. We had 2 Destiny Heroes revealed right next to it, so potentially we've got 2 more slots down here. So this could be another like water support card like Ice Barrier and Ice Knight, or it could be more of Sherry LeBlanc's Noble Knight cards theoretically, but we'll see. Then we move down. We've got 1 slot right under Starving Venomy, so we could potentially see another like support card with Venomy's stuff with Yuya's kind of support. So we could see another Yuya card down here, which makes sense. He's a main character, so that's they might lean more towards that. And then we have one slot here as well, right under the Lyrilusc card, right above Cypher. So who knows what we'll see there. And then I guess technically there's one more under the Appliancer cards. But this is also right at the beginning of the reprints. So we have one reprint there. This is almost guaranteed to be a reprint as well. So keep that in mind. But we have at least, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more cards to be revealed in the next, 2-3 days. And maybe this could be a new card as well, which is really cool. So I'll obviously bring you that if they are something worth talking about. Still waiting on King's Court. Still waiting on Burst of Destiny. We're actually like just over a month away from Burst of Destiny coming out in the OCG. So we're actually probably going to get, 75 cards in the next month from that. So I'm very excited for that. We definitely have some cool reveals. It's been a little bit slow here and there with current news, but I got the videos coming to you. Do not worry about that. But that is going to do it from here today, guys. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think about these respective cards. If you've been looking a lot at the Lyrilusc stuff, let me know how useful you think a card like this would be, even as just a searchable one-up for specific situations. Still be curious to see. And then also this guy. If you think, like, if you are a lover of the Yuya style decks, let me know what you think of this guy, or just as a generic super poly target in general. So I'm gonna get the hell out of here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. Let me know that stuff in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.